都不一样，因为它同时遇到了消费降级和舔狗经济的崩盘。
Nowadays, Valentine's Day in China is very different from the past, as it coincides with both the consumption downgrade and the collapse of the simps economy. In the past, the capital market had been promoting an idealized concept of romance. Men were responsible for making money and supporting the family, while women were responsible for maintaining their beauty and charm. It was assumed that a man who loved you would spare no expense to spend money on you. Therefore, men emptied their wallets, while women enjoyed the material pampering, as if it were all taken for granted. However, over time, a shocking situation has emerged, one that has stunned both capitalists and these little fairies. More and more men have started to wake up. They no longer want to be simps, nor do they want to spend money on women. According to data, in 2023, the actual sales revenue of the domestic gaming market exceeded 300 billion yuan, growing by 13.95% year-on-year. In the same year, the men's beauty and skincare market also grew rapidly, with sales of men's skincare products surpassing 100 million yuan, a growth rate of 235.37%. In 2022, the market size for fishing equipment reached 4.6 billion yuan, growing by 189%, and it continued to show strong growth in 2023. What's confusing is that during these 2 years, which coincide with a general consumption downgrade, many products saw a decline in sales, but sales of male-related products continue to rise, even increasing. The only explanation for this is that more and more men are no longer spending money on women, but are focusing on themselves and spending money on their own well-being. Some men commented that rather than spending half a month's salary on a woman for a simple thank you, they would prefer to use that money to take their mother on a trip, buy a 70-inch TV, buy a game skin, purchase a pair of Air Jordans, buy a high-quality fishing rod, or even spend money on a relaxing foot massage. These choices not only make them feel happy, but they also avoid the invisible silent cost. Behind this change, there are not only economic factors but also issues related to gender imbalance. However, more importantly, it is the result of capital's long-term overpromotion of women. The core logic behind the capital's approach can be summarized in 2 steps. The first step is to create a sense of urgency among men by widely promoting issues like gender imbalance or the bachelor crisis, forcing men to willingly spend money on women, believing that it is their responsibility. The second step is to apply moral pressure to those men who are unwilling to spend money on women, claiming not spending money on a woman means not loving her, which exacerbates the psychological burden on men and prevents them from refusing women's demands. These promotional tactics turned gifts, from what should be a heartfelt expression, into a material obligation for men to continuously upgrade, as if spending more money was the only way to prove their sincerity. At the same time, the capital also continually promotes women as little fairies, while labeling men as ordinary people. This gendered way of thinking subtly influences women's psychology, making them believe that it is only natural for men to spend money on them. Over time, women have become accustomed to this sponsorship, and have increasingly raised their standards for choosing a partner. On many matchmaking shows, you will hear women over 30 casually stating that they want a man with an annual salary of 200,000 to 300,000 yuan and a height over 1.8 meters. They don't see this as a wish, but believe they deserve such treatment. It is precisely because of this distorted view on relationships and consumption that, in just over a decade, China has seen the emergence of more than 100 million older single women.
Sisters, what does the most stingy man you've met look like? A few days ago, I met a guy online. He looked really handsome, tall, clean, and fair-skinned. He was the type that exuded a cold, handsome vibe, the kind that made you think, he's out of my league. To be honest, I didn't dare to imagine anything developing between us at first, thinking I wasn't good enough for him. But to my surprise, the next day, he suddenly texted me on WeChat, asking me if I wanted to go to Universal Studios with him. I was a little thrilled and thought, maybe he was interested in me. I started to feel a bit more attractive and thought perhaps he was looking to develop some kind of relationship with me. Thinking he was so handsome, I figured he would plan something romantic. So, I spent over 2 hours carefully doing my makeup and dressed up looking very refined. Then we went to Universal Studios together. But once we arrived, I started to feel like something was off. When I asked him where the entrance was, he simply said, "Trust me, follow me." I thought since he said so, I followed him. But he led me through a back entrance. Although there was security, there was no ticket check. I guess this might be some VIP access that rich second-generation kids often use since they don't mind spending the money. He led me through the VIP entrance. At that moment, I felt a little excited, thinking I was walking through a luxurious corridor like a rich man's woman. But just when I was feeling smug, he suddenly said, "We're a bit late, and buying tickets to go in isn't worth it. How about we go to the commercial street next to it instead? It's free, and we don't need to spend any money." When I heard that, I couldn't help but laugh inside but had to agree. So, we went to the Universal Avenue Commercial Street instead, completely skipping Universal Studios. By now, I started feeling a bit thirsty, so I asked him if he could buy me a bottle of water. He agreed and took me to a small stall where we bought cola. We bought 2 cups of cola, and I ended up paying for them. What was up with this stall? You pay first, and then they give you 2 cups, and you have to serve yourself with water. At that stall, he filled each cup halfway for every flavor of soda, then drank it right there at the stall. He kept filling 1 cup after another and drank several rounds, asking me if I wanted to drink more. I was speechless, unable to say anything. I just stood there quietly, making sure not to get too close to him. Because everyone around us was watching, I kept a distance of about 2 meters from him, completely pretending I didn't know him. Later, we continued to wander around the commercial street. He kept talking about how the best snack in Universal Studios was the hot dog. I thought, since he kept mentioning it, maybe we should buy one and try it. We reached a hot dog stand, but there was only 1 hot dog left. Without a second thought, he bought it for himself and started eating it, completely ignoring me. Watching him devour it so happily, I couldn't help but feel confused, wondering why I was even accompanying him to such a place. I felt like a fool. After the hot dog incident, I was seriously upset and thought I should just go home. Just as I was about to leave, he suddenly asked, "Don't girls like to take photos? Let me take a few pictures for you." I was puzzled at first, thinking there was nothing particularly special here to take pictures of, except for some brand stores, but I still reluctantly agreed. He took 4 pictures of me. The first one, he insisted that I pose in front of the Adidas store, even though they were in the middle of doing business. He made me stand there, posing awkwardly while they worked. I was really embarrassed. Then, he made me pose with the KFC sign, and afterward, he dragged me to the front of the Pop Mart store to take another photo with its sign. When I got home, I immediately deleted all his contact information.
我舅妈给我介绍了个相亲对象，约我下班以后跟他一起吃个饭。
My aunt recently introduced a matchmaker to me, and she asked me to have dinner with him after work. That evening, after finishing my work, I hurriedly rushed to the agreed place, a Sichuan restaurant. As soon as I entered, I saw that he was already sitting there and had already ordered 4 dishes. Seeing that he had already ordered, I felt a bit embarrassed to say anything, thinking to myself that the food wasn't expensive and it would be fine to just make do with it. We sat down and exchanged a few words. Just as I had eaten a few bites, I suddenly received a work-related phone call. The restaurant was quite noisy, so I had to stand up and go outside to take the call. After about 10 minutes, I hung up and returned to the table. I was planning to apologize, as I had been quite busy with work lately. But as soon as I walked into the restaurant and was about to speak, I glanced at the table and noticed that the plates were nearly empty. I was still thinking to myself, how could this man have no sense of courtesy? He ate so fast without considering me. He asked me, "Are you done eating?" "I've almost finished." I was stunned for a moment, and I didn't know what to say. Although I felt a bit helpless, I still replied, I'm done." I was thinking to myself, did I just eat air and get full? I decided to let it go and prepared to pack up and leave. So, I walked toward the counter. When I glanced back, I saw that he had already picked up a bag containing 4 takeout boxes. We only ordered 4 dishes, and I was just curious how he could eat so fast, but now I understood, he had packed up everything. When he saw me walking toward the counter, he immediately followed and wanted to pay the bill. I thought to myself, since I hadn't eaten much, I'd let him pay the bill. After paying, we walked out of the restaurant. As we were just about to reach the door, he suddenly said, "I treated you to this meal, how about you take me to see a movie?" I was a bit stunned and quickly replied, "How about I give you half the money for the meal?" He said, "No need, I just want to watch a movie with you." I answered, "It's too late today, I'm a bit tired from work. Let's do it another day." He still didn't give up, asking, "What about the weekend? Are you free then?" I said, "I have to work overtime this weekend." He was surprised, then continued, "So you have to work overtime both days?" I said, "Yes." Actually, anyone with common sense could tell that I was rejecting him, but he seemed to not understand. Then he continued, "How about Monday after work? Let's meet Monday after work." I didn't reply and just turned around to leave. He suddenly pulled out a box of vegetables from the takeout bag and handed it to me, saying, "I heard from your aunt that you don't cook. You can take this to the office tomorrow to eat." I felt speechless but didn't show it on the surface. I said, "No need, we have food at the office." He seemed not to understand and added, "Don't forget, we're going to the movies on Monday." I walked away for about 10 meters when suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message from him. He said, "Sister, we're going to see a movie on Monday. Don't forget to book the tickets in advance." I was nearly driven crazy by this man, so I quickly blocked his message. Not long after, he called me. After I answered the call, he said, "Why didn't you reply to my message? Don't forget, you promised to take me to the movies on Monday." I was on the verge of losing it and finally couldn't hold back. I said, "Fine, I'll take care of it, you wait." Then I hung up the phone and quickly blocked him.
男人不给你花钱是不是就是不爱你？
Many girls believe that if a man doesn't spend money on you, it means he doesn't love you. However, I think it's a bit one-sided to say this directly. It can't be generalized. Let me explain. I think there are some preconditions for this statement to hold true. For example, if your boyfriend is much older than you, say by more than 5 years, or even more, the man holds a significant advantage in terms of age. In such a case, you can directly ask him to contribute materially. If, in this situation, he still refuses to give, then you can say he doesn't love you. After all, with such an age gap, the man is in a more favorable position. And if he is not willing to make an effort for you, you can reasonably conclude that he doesn't care enough. But if you and your boyfriend are of similar age, then the situation is different. For the statement, "If a man doesn't spend money on you, it means he doesn't love you," to be valid, you also need to make some contributions to the man in return. In a romantic relationship, the contributions of both parties should be relatively equal, and it's not just about the man's side. If you want him to spend money on you, you also need to spend money on him. Only when both of you are making efforts for each other, especially when the relationship is intimate, does it make sense to expect him to do so. In fact, in many cases, men often contribute more than women in relationships, and that's something I personally agree with. So, as a man, I should make a greater material contribution. You should support this view, but remember, when I say that the man should contribute more, it doesn't mean that the man contributes and the woman does nothing. For example, if I give my girlfriend a gift worth 5,000 yuan, that should be enough to show that I like her, right? But if she also likes me, she should give me a return gift. The value of her return gift can be a bit less. If I give her a gift worth 5,000 yuan, she can give me a gift worth 3,000 yuan, which means that I've contributed 2,000 yuan more than her, and this already represents my love and effort. If, however, your boyfriend accepts the gift but does not return the favor, then you can say if a man doesn't spend money on you, it means he doesn't love you, because in this situation, he hasn't reciprocated, and this behavior is clearly inappropriate. It can be understood as him not valuing you enough. Moreover, for certain expenses, women can ask the man to pay without any psychological burden. For example, if you are staying in a hotel together, the cost of the hotel should be borne by the man. Similarly, if you are living together, the rent should be paid by the man. If in these cases, your boyfriend is unwilling to contribute, you can directly say that he doesn't love you. In conclusion, we should look at this issue rationally. Don't easily believe the saying, "If a man doesn't spend money on you, it means he doesn't love you." If you think this way, you might not truly love the man yourself.
Why do many women feel that the men they go on blind dates with are stingy, and that men are becoming less willing to spend money on women? To understand this issue, we need to look at it from several aspects. First, we need to realize that men who participate in blind dates are not likely to be seeing just one woman. They might be going on blind dates with several women at the same time. The frequency of blind dates is often quite high, so the cost of each meeting can add up. According to traditional views, Men are usually expected to pay for the first meeting as a sign of politeness and responsibility. However, as the number of blind dates increases, so does the number of people, and naturally, the expenses grow. Additionally, as a woman, you typically do not pay for these blind dates, so in some ways, you may not have the right to judge whether a man is stingy. Another important reason is that many men, during blind dates, are not necessarily unwilling to spend money, but they are hesitant to spend too much before they are sure that the woman likes them. You can think of it this way. Men are not too tight-fisted with their money, but rather they are uncertain about the future of the relationship. If they spend a few $100 on a massage, at least they get a few hours of comfort. Or if they spend the money on games or game cards, those game cards are theirs to keep forever. However, if they spend that money on a blind date with a woman and she ends up not being interested in them, then the money is essentially wasted. So, the reason many men are reluctant to spend money on women during blind dates is not entirely due to a reluctance to part with money, but because of their concerns about the uncertain future of the relationship. In their eyes, spending money and time on an uncertain match might not yield as much return as spending that money on something more immediate and tangible. Would you be willing to spend money on a woman during a date? Feel free to leave your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to bring you better content. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.